Hi y'all, Kraken Latte here. Welcome to a new mini-series where I cover my results from leveling through each zone in World of Warcraft. This data is being collected in order to make my new leveling guides. As you can imagine, going through each zone in WoW, sometimes even twice due to faction differences, is going to take a while. So, in the meantime, I'll share my findings with you. Since the process of leveling was changed in 9.0, including the introduction of Chromie Time and the removal of heirloom buffs, zones give different results than before, and that's why I'm redoing them all. I'm not going to repeat the ground rules again so as not to bore all of you who saw the first episode. If you haven't seen it though, please go watch that so you can understand my results and not wonder why yours may look different. Let's get right into it. Alright, we are actually going to start with Exile's Reach. This is simply because it is really close to the Broken Isles and there's really nowhere else to put it. So, this is a starter zone for both factions, it's the same on both sides. Really quick zone, and you get from 1 to 10 in about 30-ish minutes. For our next faction neutral zone, we have Azsuna. I have 3 different data points for you here, a 10, a 20, and a 30. I usually keep the 10 and 20 together in one big bracket of 10 to 30, but I did them separate just to see if there was going to be a difference here since the Broken Isle zones are pretty good. So, starting with 10, I went from 10 to 25 in 124 minutes. For the 20s, I went from 24 to 35 in 137. And then for the 30s, I went from 30 to 38 in 133. So, despite actually having the different speeds of riding here, the one at 20, the one at 10, and then the flight license at 30, the low-level one, you can actually see how little of a difference it makes in time with completion there. It's actually, all 3 of these are very close, so that's a very interesting point. That's why I keep the 20s with the 10s, simply because they're not really worth breaking up too much because they tend to overlap a lot. So, at any rate, Azsuna's pretty good. I wasn't as impressed as I wanted to be, so I did not do a 40s range because of the 30s here. I would probably drop down to about 6 levels, and not much time would be shaved off of that, maybe in the 120s range. So I didn't think it would be worth trying, but that's okay. I think the best range for Azsuna here is actually in the 10s. You get 15 levels there. That's pretty good. For our next faction neutral zone, we have Val'sharah. This is actually the best zone, in my opinion, out of the Broken Isles, simply because it has the best results for all 3 data brackets, which is awesome. So, starting with the 10s, we have 10 to 23 in 102 minutes. Jumping to the next bracket of the 30s, we have 30 to 38 in 83 minutes, so the same levels there as Azsuna, but way faster. And then in the 40s, we get 40 to 45 in 70 minutes. So you can see here that the levels that you get out of the zone are very similar to Azsuna, but the time is so much better, and that makes a huge difference, especially in those 30s and 40s there. So while the 10s are really good, the 30s and 40s, I think, are where this zone really shines. It shines and shines, because it's just, you can't beat those times. It's really hard to beat those times in other zones. For our next faction neutral zone, we have Highmountain, which I think is the second best zone in the Broken Isles, and I did this in 3 different brackets as well. Starting with 10, I went from 10 to 28 in 150 minutes. Not too bad. That's a whopping 18 levels for pretty decent time. I went from 30 to 40, so 10 levels there in 134 minutes, and then 40 to 48 in 126. Now, all 3 of these ranges are really good, but I think the best one is actually the 40s range. A little secret here, I have yet to have another zone that beats Highmountain's 40 to 48 in 126. That is 15-ish minutes per level, which in that 40s range is really good, and I haven't found one to beat that yet. There might be one, but little spoiler for you there, Highmountain may be in the list in the future. But either way, Highmountain is fabulous for both factions if you know how to traverse it. There's definitely some tricks there which I can show later if you all want. So, For our next faction neutral zone, we have Stormheim. I only did this in the one bracket of 30 to 40. I did it for both factions because there is actually slightly different faction lines at the very beginning and at the very end, but they pan out to the exact same levels and almost to the minute. So there's no difference between the two factions in the data. So I went from 30 to 40 in 166 minutes, and I stopped there because this is the worst of the 4 zones in my opinion, simply because of the intro. If it did not have that intro, the faction intro, the scenario that you have to do takes about 15 minutes. Even if you're flying through it, I think my fastest was like 14 and a half. You cannot get out of that, and you get almost no XP in that time, so it's a real zone killer. But even then, this zone is not as great as the other 3, so I did not bother with the other brackets. So, there you go. I do not recommend Stormheim, even though I love the zone. It's beautiful, love the theme. Not great on the data. Our next faction neutral zone is Suramar. This, like some other endgame zones in the game, is not meant for leveling. There is a lot of quests here, however you cannot do them until level 45. You could probably use this to level. I don't know how much XP you would get out of it. In my experience, these type of zones do not actually give that much, which is a shame because I would love to level with places like these, but I'm sure you could make it work somehow if you wanted. But Suramar, beautiful, lots of quests, can't do it till 45. Not a leveling zone. Next we have the little zone of the Eye of Azshara. No, I'm not talking about the instance, I'm talking about the actual zone, and since it shows up on the map as a zone, down there at the bottom, I'm bringing it out here. There are really no quests here. I'm not sure why this is actually physically here, but it is cool to go to. Besides the little secret world boss you can do every once in a while when he pops up. But this is not a leveling zone, but it is a zone, so here it is. And for our final faction neutral zone on the Broken Isles, we have Argus. This is technically an entirely different planet, but you reach it through the Broken Isles because it was part of the Legion expansion and one of the ended zones, so it's considered part of the Broken Isles. But for Argus, we have 3 different zones within that planet: Kraken, the Antorn Wastes, and Makari, all of which are not accessible until level 45. Similar to Suramar, they are not technically leveling zones. You can probably get some XP out of these, but not much, since that seems to be the trend for these type of zones. And I know for the last zone there, Makari, there are some rep and time gaining things. So, do it at your own leisure. Really cool zones. Love these zones. Not for leveling. And that does it for the Broken Isles. Short, sweet, and to the point. These are some of the best zones in the game. I'm not just saying that because I'm biased. I'm saying that from a data point. Excluding Stormheim at least, these have some of the best times and results for their brackets that I have on my list so far. I honestly wish you could do Val'sharah for all 3 brackets because it has the best times so far. I haven't done everything yet, of course, so there is likely something better, but you never know. So Broken Isles, really good for leveling. Highly recommend it. Even if you do just Broken Isles, you will make really good time. So Broken Isles are done. In the next video, we will see Kulturos and Zandalar. Only 6 zones there, 3 for each faction, but they're really long. I mean, a good few hours long, so we will see how that one pans out. As always, thank you so much for watching, and remember, it's never too latte.